I would do it. I'll be the first one. Okay, welcome everyone to the last session of the day, last session of the conference. Thank you for being to this one. I will start with the safety instructions, and I'm the first moderator who will wing it because we don't have the text with somehow here. Our venue has voice-activated safety protocol. If you hear it say something, leave the premises, please. The exits are, we have two, one there. If somebody needs it, the defibrillator is up in the entrance area. Guertin it the second day because we heard it many times, but I didn't know I was going to have to do it. Welcome again. So our session is talking about, we are focused on sustainability in museums and cultural organizations. You may have realized if you sign up very early and pick this session, our title has changed because initially the idea was to talk about cultural sustainability in museums. Very similar. We're still doing what we're thinking we're doing, but we had a little bit of discussion within our group. So not all the examples that you're going to learn about today are about museums, as in museum like this one, Maritime Museum, all of the beautiful museums that are on this part of Stockholm, where right now. But more broadly, the examples that you will learn about today are of cultural organizations, including museums, institutions that are promoting culture. And what is really culture when we talk about culture? We talk about culture all the time. And in fact, it's even one of the 4 pillars of the GSTC criteria, as you know by now. But what is it that we're actually talking about? And because we had this discussion, so what are our examples are not just about museums. Because of it, I looked it up. So what is a museum? The International Council of Museums has a really, really, really nice definition that I encourage you to learn about. A museum is a non-profit permanent institution in the service of society that researches, collects, conserves, interprets, exhibits tangible and intangible heritage. So these are some of the key things that the concept of a museum represents. Open to public, accessible, inclusive, museums foster diversity and sustainability. Excellent. And some of the other aspects of what museums represent include operating with the participation of community, offering varied experiences for education, engagement, and really nicely, reflection and knowledge sharing. So I think these are connected to a lot of the things that we've been doing in the last few days. And so regardless of what we're talking about in terms of specific examples coming from museums, like this museum or many of these great museums, or other types of cultural institutions, I think a lot of these concepts in terms of sustainability, inclusion, and so on are really relevant. And as part of cultural organizations, when we talk about museums as part of this bigger umbrella of cultural organizations, there are different types of groups, organizations, museums, galleries, archives, heritage organizations, and so on. I also found a really great resource that talks about inclusion in museums and cultural organizations, and I think social aspects of sustainability is one of the themes that we're going to learn about today as well. That really talks about how the opportunities that we have in cultural organizations to manifest and model inclusion and equity, celebrate differences, inform and enrich society's conventions about identity and belonging. So I really loved learning about all of these concepts around museums and cultural institutions that are really relevant to all of the discussions that we're having at this conference and specifically today. And I hope that you would take from the examples that we are learning about today these connections related to what you do in terms of your work in sustainability, whether you're talking about or thinking about working on social, cultural, economic, environmental aspects of sustainability. And one last thing that I'll add to this what is culture question is I think it's really having been exposed to discussions around the GSTC criteria, and because I'm involved in training, so maybe some of you have seen me in that capacity, and we always talk about these 4 pillars, and you heard from Randy yesterday as well, these 4 pillars of holistic sustainability, which is really, really important to the idea of sustainability itself. But I think importantly, I was trying to think of what are some of the different other ways of representing visually these 4 different areas, because these are not 4 separate areas. We know this in our own experiences. When we think about and talk about sustainability, challenges and opportunities and solutions, those things don't happen in these neat 4 categories, but they are interconnected. So I'm in search of a concept, idea, a visual representation that's not just 4 pillars, because we do talk about 4 pillars, but these are interconnected 4 areas of priorities, including cultural sustainability, which is the theme of today. But I think you would notice from our examples of cultural sustainability that we learn about, these are really importantly connected to social, economic, environmental aspects of sustainability as well. And with that, I'm realizing that I didn't introduce myself because of the whole stress with the safety introduction. My name is Ayako Ezaki. As mentioned, I work with the GSTC's training program, the Sustainable Tourism Training Program, and I manage the online courses. And because of that, some of you I've met only online and now in real life. Very happy to be here, and I'm also really happy and proud to be moderating this session. And I would like to, how do we do this? I will introduce you one by one, I guess, because you come and then, okay. So our first speaker is Carl-Éric Guertin, Executive Director of Économusée Network Society. Which is and I would like to highlight a little bit of some of the key professional aspects of their background, as well as maybe an interesting thing that I learned about you. So the Économusée Network Society is a network of artisan and small organizations supporting intangible cultural heritage, sharing knowledge, know-how, and promoting traditional skills of these partners that they work with, and working with sustainable tourism as a tool to empower artisans and cultural heritage promoter. And I was really excited to learn. I think it was really interesting to see within our panel this connection. You have a background in sustainable forestry, which I think is a really interesting topic in itself, even though that's not what you're going to talk about when we think about cultural institutions such as museums and sustainable forestry. So with that, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So before I start, every time I come to Sweden, Swedish people are asking me if I'm Sweden because I have a Swedish name. So I'm not from Sweden, nor I'm from the Swedish monarchy. But today I would like to be Swedish because I'm really jealous. All the Swedish people, since they won, have little nice card, all printed well and using it, and I don't have those cards, so I wish I could have those cards. So just to give you a bit of background, I'm a forester, and what I like to be here is that 35 years ago, the entire international forest product industry went through the same thing about forest management certification. So it's like the like the tourism industry is maybe 30 years behind what other sectors have done, but the demand is something else. So I want to talk to you about what we've done in terms of initiatives by supporting our artisan in our network. So first of all, we are a small international organization based in Canada. We have expanded the network in Northern Europe by developing some chapters. So we have members in the Östersjön region here in Sweden. So we assist artisan entrepreneurs, and when I say artisan entrepreneurs, could be small, like 1 or 2 people doing pottery, or to a winemaker, or a non-for-profit organization that produce something, or a workers' co-op or a social enterprise. So what you need to be produce something to be called an artisan. So our mission is to preserve and help artisans to transmit their know-how to the visitor by implementing what we call the Économusée concept, which is a touristic concept based around meeting the artisan at work, discovering the history of the artisan, how the craft has evolved over time, and the heart of the Économusée is really to see the workshop, really the artisan working and demonstrating how he's doing his craft. And there's always a boutique at the end, because the ultimate goal of an Économusée is for people to have a better understanding of the craft and the local culture, and they're more willing to buy the product. So we support artisans to become a tourist attraction. So for the people who don't know what we're talking about in terms of intangible cultural heritage, the UNESCO Convention identifies some domain. So it could be oral tradition and expression, performing arts, social practices, ritual and festive event, knowledge and practice concerning nature and the universe, and traditional craftsmanship. So the example I'm going to talk about today is for traditional craftsmanship and a bit of social practices and ritual that we have members in. So how we started the issue about sustainability? That came up, I would say, in my radar screen back in 2019. And when I heard about sustainable tourism, I say it's like the forest product industry. This is a big wave coming, and we need to look at it. So we started with a survey back in 2020, asking the membership across the different countries. There was a questionnaire of 160 questions based on the GSTC indicator and some other environmental standards. So what we found out is that some of the highlights is that 25% or less of the members were taking action on green gas emission or sustainable mobility, meaning do you use electric car, do you provide cycling support, or you encourage your employees to bike or walk. But they were really good in other things like residual material. You know, they are artisans, so their main, I would say, their primary resource, that's where they make their money from. So, but we found out that there was also a question, what were the barriers? So taking some of the barriers were time. I don't have time. The budget. I don't have the budget to take action on accessibility. I don't have the workforce, and some were a bit discouraged by the effort that you need to do, or you say, I'm going to do only small action while there are bigger players that, what's going to be my influence in all this sustainable development? So keep in mind time, budget, and workforce. So stuff that we've done, so I'm taking here example from the province of Quebec, Canada. So we partner with an organization that promotes accessible tourism in the cultural and tourist sector. So we team up with them. They provided training to our membership, but also to our staff. We also did an assessment of all our businesses if they were partially or totally accessible. And so we got some funding to do that. But keep in mind that accessibility is not only about putting a ramp or escalator, is interior design, access to the interpretation panel, so stuff like that you need to keep in mind. But some of the challenges, it costs me requirement. Sometimes our membership members are operating in buildings, so it's more costly. It's hard to put a ramp, elevator, and everything. Sometimes they are in historic buildings, so you cannot put everything you want in a historic building, and sometimes efficient space. So also what we've done is to raise awareness. So we organize a workshop, event, or conference on different issues like adaptation to climate change. And look at the two bottom pictures. In the province of Quebec last summer, we got a lot of flooding and big forest fires. So that means there were road closure or some community that they needed to evacuate. So when you're an artisan and you're in those communities, so you're losing revenue because the tourists don't go. So this issue of adaptation to climate change is really, really important for the artisans. So tourism, intangible, cultural, green building, accessible tourism, and sustainable certification. Also, what we've done is we encourage the use of technology, because sometimes the artisans are not always there. They're not 7 days at their workshop. So we introduce virtual reality so people can understand the craft when the artisan is not doing his work or is not there. Or also introduce technology, because when you put an interpretation panel, maybe a year later the information is going to be outdated. So using technology, it's easier to put the information up to date. So we encourage the use of electric car, and at the bottom, the lady by herself, it's a cool thing we've done. We put, it's a beekeeper, so we put the camera in the beehive, so when you put the goggles as a visitor experience, you feel like you're the queen of the beehive because they're flying all over. So also what we've done is we put annual award to encourage innovation in developing a visitor experience. So the next thing we've done is encourage some of our membership to pursue the sustainable tourism certification. So one of the sessions that I attended this morning, they were talking about group certification. We didn't do group certification per se. What we've done a cohort that we started with 15 businesses that we did common workshop and training, site visit. We provided the artisan with an action plan, and we support them to get all the paperwork done. And so out of the 15, one drop and 10 pursue to get the Canadian certification called Green Step. I would say we went a bit maybe very quickly to get the certification. So some of the challenges, or if we would do it again, we would take more time. We would take more time to train, and what I would train them on what is sustainable tourism. As an organization now, they have their certification, but to keep their certification, they need help because in 2 years' time, they need to improve their scorecard, if I may say. And also provide workshop that they can get together and exchange on best practices. So one of the questions we were asked by the moderator is what action can be taken to become a sustainable tourism leader. So maybe an easy one, accessible tourism, but something because our tourist experience is meeting the artisan. So there's a tremendous opportunity for the artisan to engage dialogue with the visitor, explaining what they're doing day to day to be sustainable, but also creating visitor experience that rare awareness about responsible tourism practices, environmental issues, cultural preservation. So, and also train the guides and our membership to become ambassador to raise visitor awareness. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carl-Éric, for getting started with this. I would like to remind everyone to go to Slido, as we've done for all of the sessions so far, to post your questions, to think about it, ask your questions. And if you remember at the start of the conference, I think there was a mention of the competition. And this is your last chance. So if you have been active, this might be the way for you to be the most active one. So yeah, please do. And I wanted to ask you really quickly, speaking of questions, did the artisans consider themselves tourism stakeholders before you started working with them? Did they know that they're part of the tourism ecosystem?
No, because I want to say artisan. Let's say you're a potter, a jeweler, a leather maker, or a winemaker, beer maker, whatsoever.
Yeah.
You start your business and you produce for, let's say, your local market, regional or national, provincial market. You embrace the tourism sector after. You're not considered as a tourism business. So the work we do is that we give, we help the artisan to become a tourist destination. So they don't know much about tourism. Sometimes they do because we take members that are already a bit of tourism and sometimes don't. So we need to provide all the training. So to work with the DMOs, how you price your visit, opening hours and everything. This is something that sometimes they're not used to do.
Thank you. Yeah, I found that really interesting when you think about so who are within our ecosystem of tourism, and again, culture being one of the most important aspects of what it is, what travel is all about. But maybe those people who really promote and provide cultural experiences may not consider themselves to be part of the tourism ecosystem, and it's our work to really bring them in, as you said, provide that expertise, share our knowledge with them so that the tourism becomes something that is positive for them as well, not just the other way around, which I think often is the case. So I would like to then next invite to the stage Anke Biedenkapp, who is the CEO of Global Partnership Hannover. Anke brings many years of experience managing and delivering local international cultural projects, including what she does at Global Partnership right now, with a strong focus on ecological sustainability and climate action, bringing sustainable tourism also working locally to the Hannover region in Germany. And I think one of the most exciting aspects of what I learned about you, because I did a lot of other homework, getting to know your work and so on, is how I would maybe describe thinking globally, acting locally, as well as thinking locally and acting globally. So if you look at what the website for the Global Partnership Hannover, you'll also see a lot of project examples, bringing people together for positive actions for climate, awareness raising, and all that. As we wait for this, that's what I wanted to mention. Can we switch? Yeah. Okay.
So, here I'm talking. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be here, and after several workshops and after today's, I would say I can't contribute new ideas for you, only a personal approach, and unfortunately not in a perfect English as you did, but I try my very best. With this tool, I guess so. So I started working in cultural tourism nearly 35 years ago, founding a small city tour organization in Hannover. And in these times, we were very alternative and very new because we introduced edutainment into guided city tours. That was very attractive, and so we worked out throughout the year several tours and were very successful. And in the same time, I was responsible for a tiny tourism fair. Maybe you have heard about it, or some of the participants of this conference even have been there. It was from 1991 to 2010. A small, I already said it, but very unique tourism fair because we gave the chance to gather there years before internet, decades before Facebook and Instagram, and all these people who gathered even didn't use the word sustainability. We still talked about environmentally friendly and socially responsible and so on. And throughout the years, we gave the place stage for so many stakeholders and destinations that we were very proud that they learned and increased their enterprise. And after 2 decades, we could say that traditional tourism fairs had learned from us, and they introduced sustainable tourism in their program, and we could say our historic mission was accomplished. So I left organizing Reise Pavillon and Stadtreisen and changed to global partnership, as well as NGO with fostering cultural and sustainable activities. And since 2018, I'm focusing on cultural roots of the Council of Europe. Maybe you know the first one of these routes. It's the Santiago de Compostela pilgrims route, approved in 87, and being so successful, other stakeholders of Europe said, we do have as well a European topic like Hanse or Reformation or Napoleon, and nowadays we do have 47 routes. They are all basing on several criteria, in particular having one common topic, at least in 3 countries of Europe, supporting international understanding and developing cultural tourism, fostering local economies. In all these working fields throughout the years, my personal interest was to make the world of tourism as possible, as sustainable as possible. But I learned that sustainability in communication plays a certain role, but not in the application, in the practice. In spite of having so many labels and so many good examples. So I continued working in this, nevertheless, and stand by my conviction. And so following the idea of John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, I try to work without official mandate, but with the idea to intervene in several projects, bottom up, to make sustainability in cultural organizations more tangible. So, as a private person, I started a kind of personal consultation for regional Santiago de Compostela pilgrims route. As a multiplier, a political being in contact with relevant stakeholders, I was initiating a sustainable tourism process, as Ayako already said. And as representative of Global Partnership of a cultural institution, I became member of the European Jewish Heritage Route and head of the German branch in 2021. We as team of Global Partnership and its partners recognized early on that cultural tourism does not necessarily include the ecological dimension. Often it contradicts it. So we focused in 5 topics, starting with awareness raising, using the power of creativity to make the 17 SDGs tangible, giving training courses to minimize ecological impact, highlighting traditional customs, how resources were used in the past, and what we can learn from our ancestors. We were organizing workshops, as already Carl-Éric said, with artists, with cooks, with herb experts, craftspeople and others to give creative suggestions for recycling, upcycling, saving and doing it yourself. And finally, conveying that technical solutions are created, but frugality is often more sustainable. Like in the case of the stairway to heaven, it does not need energy, and it's much more sportier than a lift. We recommend the following characteristics concerning food. You know, all that keeps body and soul together. And we gave to our partners all these examples you already know: increase the share of local and ecological, fairly produced goods, intensify the contact with our providers and with their providers and farmers, more organic food and vegetarian food on the menu, avoiding waste, and providing information on a menu about the origin of the food, production methods, and interesting stories about food and drinks. And finally, reducing as an area respect packages, throwaway table chairs or tableware or single-use paper items. So the next important topic to focus on is to present strong examples to the partners of win-win for both sides, giving discounts on takeaway food and drinks when customers use a depositive system or bring their own containers, offering for bus and train travelers discounts on events, tickets for local transport or rental bikes, free drinks for those doing the daily room service without the daily room service, direct benefits for those who are contributing ideas that help save water, energy, or avoid waste, or as well organize a kind of competition to collect good sustainable ideas and to give a prize at it. So, merchandising as well is a very interesting topic, and we have seen it already in the museums we are in, that it's necessary to use typical items, local produced, and so on. And the most important aspect is not increasing the amount of things we already have in our possession. And last but not least is drawing attention to the multifaceted forms of expression and accompanying symptoms in all websites, flyers, and so on, requesting a clear statement on why and how we are planned actions and measures contributing to the social and ecological development of the goals, asking for action and reactions from the guest. Which sustainability ideas did they take with, and which one would they give to the cultural organizations? And the last point here is as well developing stories that motivate us always to be aware of the consequences of our lifestyle and help to turn around our wasteful lives. In this sense, that's a good example, but this is better. Finally, the conclusion. Being convincing with our arguments and our own habits is a precondition for reaching stakeholders such as entrepreneurs, politicians, and influencers. Fulfilling and enjoyable holidays do not have to involve excessive consumption. Storytelling is an excellent medium for steering the winds of change towards sustainability. Flexibility and creativity is needed to make a difference and to create a snowball effect. Teaming up with other change makers, increasing the impetus towards binding criteria for a sustainable future. And last but not least, not just tourism professionals, but everyone can spread the message: living, working, and traveling sustainable is cool.
So thank you. I wanted to ask a follow-up question, but also I wanted to highlight that I really appreciate that you made a connection between opportunities that we have in promoting environmental, ecological, sustainability practices through the cultural experiences that we offer. And I think that making the connection, as mentioned at the start, I think those things are really interconnected. And I think this reminded me of some of the discussions that we also been having at our conference about the purpose, the meaning. Why do we do these things? Why do people want to participate in cultural experiences? Why do people want to go to museum? We want to really maximize the positive impacts of the meaningful encounters that they will have. And we have an opportunity, I think, at Culture Organization when people are coming to your destinations, to your institutions, to your businesses because of their passion for something, their interest for something, to use that as an opportunity for education and awareness raising, as these examples have shown. But on not related to that, but related to culture, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned your work around cultural roots. In Europe, there's been, I think, a lot of trends, really concerning trends towards more separation, more division, more conflict, and less unity. Whether we're talking about sort of cultural differences, political views, and all that kind of stuff. Have you felt that in your work? Is this kind of general trend influencing our work in cultural tourism? Are we addressing this as tourism to help this trend go back to what we kind of talked about at the conference as well? Promoting positive connections.
I would say that those who are working in cultural roots don't have these borders in the mind. They are working in co-working spaces, and they are really in a deep relationship with each other. But of course, for instance, in the case of the Jewish cultural root, it's very interesting how the different shareholders are reacting according to what is happening in Israel, and how Jewish people is attached here in Europe, and how to support instead of all these challenges, a positive option towards the future.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like what the concept of cultural roots represents in terms of the possibility of connecting people with different backgrounds, different ideas, and so on. So thank you again.
Thank
so
you.
More on that. Again, a reminder to think of and enter and type your questions, please, on Slido. Next up, I would like to welcome to stage and introduce Peter Skogh, who is the Director of National Museum of Science and Technology, Tekniska, which I think some of you have already been today, at least a portion of it because of a session. So Peter is the chair also of the Royal Guertin Society, the whole area we're in, and also the chair, among many hats that you wear, I would add, the chair of the Association of Swedish Science Centers and the board member of Swedish Museums Association. So you can imagine how actively engaged he is in all of these great things that we're talking about, especially within this context in Sweden. Peter has private and public sector experiences, professional experiences, as well as mixed backgrounds, combining expertise in culture, communication, business, and industry. And I would really, really like to add this one little fun fact that I found out as we I was going to say Skype, but that's not what we did. As we connected the first time. So I'm based in Germany, and I mentioned my city. I'm not in a larger city like Hannover or Berlin or Munich, but a small city. And it's not very common that when I say where I am, somebody knows it, somebody outside of Germany knows it. But Peter did. And I said, why? And it's because the city of Eskilstuna in Sweden is a sister city of where I live in Erlangen in Germany. What an amazing connection. So that was, I think, for me, a really fun thing. I actually looked it up. What are sister cities of my city? Which I encourage you to do as well, because you are all global sustainable tourism people. But with that, thank you already for the inspiration, but thanks for being here, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I think sister cities, it's a good thing actually, because you get to learn people, and I think tourism is also about getting to learn people. And with all these different assignments, I think I have a good perspective on this question how museums could contribute to sustainable tourism. Because there's a lot of power in museums. We meet a lot of people, and I try to, in my short speak, to cover the three different aspects of sustainability, like economic, sustainable, social, and environmental climate matters. I will do that by a walk through my museum and how we work a little bit. It will be our external programming. It will be how we work internally to become a sustainable organization or institution. And I will tell a little bit of our outreach work we do in socially less well-off economic areas. And then I will tell a little bit also about the wooden hall that some of you have been into, which is a good example of how you can save a bit of carbon dioxide. Museums then, I think it's very much a matter of democracy and the power of public spaces. I would like to take a Swedish example. There is a research done, I think it's done every second year by the Gothenburg University, and they check the trustworthiness of different societal institutions, and museums are on the absolute top with an index of 72. And then you can compare with the healthcare, it has 50. And when it comes to politician, it's like -2, or industry -12 or something like that. Of course, it comes also with a lot of responsibility, but it tells there is a potential because you listen when you go to a museum, you interact, and as you said, there is something going on that is driven by people's interest. And only in Sweden it lives like 12 million people. We have last year we had 28 million museum visits. And if I go into my institution, which is one of the top 10 indoor museums, we interact, or they interact with us for in average 4 hours. So they interact with what we show, what we do. But also the food we eat and what we drink is a possibility to communicate these matters, which you have good examples on, if we do it in a proper way. Yes. What should I say then? And we don't tell. This is what we do, more or less. We don't, of course, tell what people should think. That's their business, so to say. But we help them to get knowledge, to make a fairly complex world understandable, so that they can make good choices when it comes to sustainability, for instance. So our next big exhibition will be on the forest. Everything that is uses fossil materials as a resource today can be done by wood. But wood is also, the forest is also needed for something else. Recreation, reindeers, the biological multiplicity, and so there are dilemmas. And if we can sort that debate up in a lustful way, because it's entertainment we're doing. And we have changed more or less everything we do. We don't do blockbuster exhibitions any longer. We have turned ourselves into more of a technical cultural house, I would say, open 12 hours a day to create meaningful meetings. So we looked at what are our resources. We have a good place. We have a good topic, innovations. We have been busy investigating possible futures the last 100 years, because an innovation is a promise of a better tomorrow, really. Of course, they brought us also to this kind of tricky situation because we are over-consuming the resources of the planet due to use of technology, but also the consumeristic way we live in. But being this culture house, we thought we have access to experts, loads of experts. Why should we have the microphone? People like me. Let the experts talk with the audience instead. There are wonderful meetings, and the experts, they are in the industry, they are in the academia, and people can ask the questions. And the exhibitions more or less have a function of being the scene for those talks. That's one way of doing it. You can do it in different ways, of course. I go into the internal perspective of what we do. And of course, you can try to do it by yourself, but it's much easier if you do it together with other people. And if you have listened to Camilla earlier, you realize that here at Djurgården we are some plus 60 institutions. We have chosen to work together, and we have defined 4 different areas which has the biggest impact on the climate and on sustainability. So the transport getting here and getting from here is of course very important. How can we improve that? What we eat has a big impact on the climate as well. On the social side, that we should be for each and every one. Open this place up. It's Royal Djurgården. It could implicate that it's not for everyone, but it really is for everyone. And then, of course, the programming and activities that we do on this spot. And then it's guided to. It's a plan. Really, what would we like to achieve? What are the goals? It's the 17 different Agenda 2030 goals, and then we monitor them together. And the fine thing is that every decision maker of these 60+ institutions, we have sat down in a room and decided together. We meet every now and then and check how are we proceeding. Do we have difficulties? Do we have problems? Yes, we have problems in areas. And then maybe the neighbor has the answer. Or if we don't have the answer within our organizations ourselves, then Camilla fixes a bit of money, and then we educate ourselves, and then we can improve and take the next step. It's very handy, and it's a power coming together. It's more interesting to give money, of course, to where it makes impact. 60 different institutions and the biggest destination in Scandinavia. Of course, you would like to support that in the direction of a better future. So that is what we do there. This is now I'm back in the museum, but on the outside again. We have a lot of troubles in Sweden with inclusion. We have a lot of areas in Greater Stockholm where we have people that are they are not given the same possibilities, I would say. It starts really in the school. So we have got other people who are interested in a stable climate or a stable societal climate, societal development to support what we do. So this is free for their teachers, their schools, and they can just sign up. We train the teachers. We bring the latest equipment into the classrooms, and they are brought to Royal Djurgården. 98% have never put their foot here, and maybe the biggest journey is to come to the city of Stockholm. They might live 20 minutes from the city, never been there. So it's a big journey, and it's an important journey, and that is about societal sustainability. And now to something different. We needed to build a new house. That is not very sustainable, of course, but we needed to realize this dome theater, and the dome theater is then needed to explain complex phenomena like climate or space, chemistry, things like that. It's really a powerful learning tool inside this 3D dome theater. But we wanted to do that in a way that told something about the possibility with innovations. And therefore, we decided to build the smartest wooden building we started in Stockholm, and then we increased a little bit. We said Sweden. It actually is one of the most advanced wooden buildings in the world. There's already written papers about the house in Australia. I didn't know that when I set off for this, and it's all about this bloody roof. It's so extremely complicated. But it's also, imagine, why do we build wooden houses, thick houses in square format, when you can bend wood? it's much. It shows the potential in the material, and we would like to open the mind of people to show what we can do with wood as a material that can replace fossil material. Really. So, with that, that's a reference object, and that open minds really. And you can see when people come there, if there are couples, they first enter the building and look like this, like the most of you did, and then they walk 10 meters in, and then they start to hug. Really, it's strange because you're aroused, and that's a known phenomena among architects, and I think that's a good thing. If we hug a little bit more, then it's a good step towards a more sustainable world. Thank you.
That is a really great statement. So I wanted to, because I thought what you said about the power that you have, and places like museums to shape conversations and so on is really great. And I wanted to ask about that, but I don't want to steal anybody's question. So I would like to invite all of you to come up here for our next part. Is really the Q&A. And there you go. We have a few already, so let's start with that. Let's start with the first question from Alexandra. Économusée, this is a question to you, Carl-Éric. Have you already considered expanding your network to Asia?
We would like to. We just need to find the right partner that is willing to take over and develop a network within their own country or province.
And there she is. But you do work internationally as well.
Yes, we do. We got EU funding many years ago. It was through a program, so that's when we partnered with Norway, Sweden, Faroe Islands, Northern Ireland, and Iceland. And so we got EU money, and our partner in Northern Europe were able to come to Canada, understand the concept, and bring it back, and we provide some business support, and then they were taking over and to develop their own network of artisans.
So that can be a model potentially to be replicated in other places as well. Excellent. Okay, great question. The next one I would take from Jun-Sik. What are some of the new ways that museums can practice sustainability in the future, or presently, not just in the future? But I guess I'll go to you, Peter. What are some of the new ways?
I think maybe the answer would be, from me at least, that the new ways are the old ways, because what do we have? What are our assets? Our primary asset is that we have this space, and the space is public, and we have the audience. People like to meet people, and I don't think that people should stop traveling because of climate reasons, because if we don't meet, we don't understand other people and other people's living circumstances. So I think that is an important thing, and to create an atmosphere for good meetings. I think people need that in times of challenges more than ever. So develop what we have would be my answer.
And speaking of the atmosphere, I see a question. I guess I see it here too. Speaking of the wooden dome, is that the picture that you shared? I guess.
Yeah.
What's inside it? How long did it take to build it?
It's a 3D dome theater in 8K. It's high resolution. It's digital. You can interact with. It was actually fun. If you heard the first session this morning, it was about data and how data could help developing tourist industry. It's used actually to make images, show images of data sets. Because if you share the image, it's much easier to understand the complex things, and that is what we use it for. That was a good example. I think it took 2 years to build it from start. The whole project took 6 years, so it was pretty fast, I would say. It took the longest time was to raise the money.
Part of the process. Great. So I think related to one of the topics you touched on about the power of cultural institution, and I think with that power comes responsibility, because I think what we do can influence the conversations that people have, the access to information, type of information that they have access to, maybe even what kind of knowledge they would take home with them and so on, which I think is a really significant power and influence that we're talking about. Wanted to go to the question here from Carolina. In the politically unstable world as we live in nowadays, how are some of these examples that you've shared with us today and approaches the events that potentially can polarize the society? So what are some of the ways that in your experience working in the cultural area, have you dealt with tricky social, political issues? How have you addressed some of those challenges in your work?
Maybe
yes,
I can try to give an answer. I already said it in the context of the Jewish cultural root. We all know if people know each other, it's the first step to be in peace with each other. And I'm turning the question into the opposite. I think cultural work, communication work, education work is a great help, and within tourism and outside of tourism, to make the world a bit better. And we all know if we know a person, it's much easier to love her, and if we don't know her, it's much easier to hate her. And so this cultural work is a huge step forward.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I think you were first.
Okay, thank you. I think that a little bit of friction is good. Friction is good because it's part of the democratic forming. It's part of democracy. And think of great art. It causes a lot of emotions. So out with emotions, but be on public spaces where you can talk, and eventually you will form good things in a way. You have met, then we behave in a better way, I think.
I would say that cultural tourism is the best way to connect between people. If you go mountain climbing, canoeing, you're by yourself. But when you do culture and you meet the people, you understand where they're coming from. They're telling their story. You have a better understanding of the local culture. And I think it's the best way for I would say, almost for peace, you know. And you remember, when you go and travel and you visit, what do you bring in your mind, especially is when you met the people, and what do you bring in your suitcase? Craft and local food.
Very true. Yeah, and that was also the message I think we heard yesterday from your ex-Prime Minister about the power of travel and why it is really important, and we are in the business of really promoting this experience, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. But we want to continue to encourage this kind of connections across borders, between different cultures. And I think that sometimes this power and the possibilities of cultural tourism, when we bring people with different backgrounds together, when we encourage learning amongst those groups of people, that power and the significance might not be as well understood as, for example, when we talk about carbon emissions and all that kind of stuff within the context of sustainability. But I do believe, and again, I think that's why it is part of one of the big pillars of the GSTC standard, is culture. And it's really all what travel is about. As you say, what people take home with them. When you think about a lot of those elements, it is really about culture as well. So we have a couple of great questions related to accessibility, inclusivity and accessibility. And I think maybe the first question might be related to specifically museums. And Peter, maybe you could address this from your own Tekniska example, but maybe museums in general. What are some of the ways that museums can ensure accessibility, I think, physically and otherwise?
I think the most sustainable thing is, of course, is to renovate an existing building. In the most cases, I would say, we built a new one, and by doing that, we evened out 4 different levels, so we could take away a number of elevators. So that helped us to create a seamless circulation from an accessibility point of view. Then we used wood as a material. I think we have captured like 1,200 tons of carbon dioxide for the next 100 years in the building. The heating system is saving another 15 tons of carbon dioxide because it's thermal heating. But there are so many other ways of accessibility aspects of that. For instance, in our case, it's a lot of noise, lights and things like that. So every last Wednesday in the month, we have a functional Wednesday, we call it, when we turn off lights and sounds and also have less visitors. And then we have quite a few people coming with certain needs. And once they have been in our place like 2-3 times, they feel it's their place. Then they know it. Then they come with other visitors. So there are many things to do, really, but you have to take it serious.
Go ahead.
Also, taking out accessibility will provide a better visitor experience for people without disability. So a lady, a couple coming with their kids with a stroller, if there's a button to open the door, it's going to be much easier. So we need to think accessibility not only for disabled people, but people without disability. It provides a better visitor experience.
And when that can lead to improving quality of life for everyone, including residents who enjoy those cultural experiences as well, I think that's a win-win. But I think also maybe related to the general topic of inclusivity, I have a personal question. In all of the places that we've been for our conference, not the hotel, but the venues, to the Swedish people in this room, is this typical, normal that all of the bathrooms are mixed? It's not a joke. Is this an inclusivity, accessibility sort of a consideration, or is this just a typical practice?
It has been a discussion, I think, before, maybe 20 years ago, something like that, that it should be mixed. But it also comes when you have the room for taking care of your small children.
Yes.
So it's mixed all over, most cases. The siding has been a discussion as well.
But do you know that this is very unique?
No,
okay,
not really.
Good. No, that's very interesting.
I can imagine, yes. Then I guess there are economic aspects behind it as well, driving the whole thing.
Interesting. Okay. Well, progress comes with challenges. Good. Thank you for sharing. I think there was a question about community engagement. I think this is a question to all of you. Whereas specifically for museums, but also to all of you in terms of working together with the local community members. Maybe you can share a little bit more examples and insights on what do you do, how do you do how do they become part of your processes, decision making, and other processes in terms of your work? Who would like to start?
Thank you.
Well, the cultural roots did not exist without population, without people. It's a relationship between the countryside, between people, and between the cultural life in their surroundings. So it's a junction you can't divide. So it's needed.
For artisan, I would say you don't need to involve the community, but being in the community, sometimes it could be the attraction of your municipality or town, and you provide jobs and summer jobs, and sometimes if you're big enough, you do sponsorship, and you just need to be corporate social responsibility artisan.
Mm-hmm. So your work is really based on working with local community members and being told
especially when you put, let's say, a flour mill, that belongs to the community, so you already have the involvement of the community supporting this touristic project.
Great. This is an abrupt stop. I thought we had more time. Apologies. However, thank you everyone for sharing these questions and being part of the discussion. And thanks to all of you for sharing your insights, examples, being part of this session. And because this is the last session of the day, I think we have some. There you go. So here is what you need to know for today. So in 10 minutes, 12 minutes, the shuttle buses leaving from here to back to the hotel or Hasselbacken. And farewell dinner today is going to be at 7 p.m. at Wassermuseum. 7? Yeah. And if you, this is as with all the events that we had today, this is for those who have signed up already. And if you have, you should have this the QR code. Bring your badge for that. And as usual, there's the bar meetup option at the Hasselbacken Hotel this evening as well. Don't leave yet. Yes, please.
Just before you leave, this is my museum.
Yes.
But I just wanted to say something about these pictures. Because it's only a beautiful remaining of boats. They are the boats that were used by the 30,000 refugees in the Second World War coming from the Baltic countries. These tiny boats, they crossed the sea for days. So just look at them, they're fantastic.
Thank you for hosting us. Okay, well, thank you.